What's up guys, Coach Dave here. Today we're going to talk about back training. Everyone knows shows are won from the back, so we're going to give you some tricks and tips to improve your back width and thickness. Everyone knows on your standard row, your overhand grip, but what people don't realize is elbow position. When you pull up and wide, you're going to target your upper back, traps, and rear delts. When your elbows are low and to the sides, you're going to target more lat. So those are the two elbow positions that we're going to focus on for this machine right here. You can see we have the handles low for lat position and we have the handles wide and high for upper back and trap. So I like to put one foot up. I like to stand when I do these, keep my elbows up high and pull up and back. So that hand positioning, again, is going to target my upper back, my traps, and my rear delts. It's going to give you that nice appearance across the upper portion of your body. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to keep my elbows tucked, chest up, and we're going to contract the lats. So every time I do any kind of row, I think about how I would pose my back on stage. For all my competitors out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're getting it ready to get into a back shot, your chest is up nice and high, you have a slight arch in your lower back, and you contract your scapulas back as far as you can. When you're working your lats, you want to keep your scapulas depressed and back. When you're working your upper back and traps, you want to keep your scapulas up and retracted. Those are the two different scapular positions to really target the back in two different ways. And if you were doing this one arm at a time, it'd be a little easier. Again, same foot position, similar to a one arm dumbbell row. Protract all the way forward, feel the stretch through the lat. Contract all the way back. You want to put as minimal rotation in your body as possible. You don't want to twist because you're going to start to get spinal rotation involved in that. All you want to do is drive back with your elbow and squeeze. Another good tip is try to take the bicep and forearm out of it. I use an overhand thumb grip, keep it nice and relaxed, and I think about drawing my elbow back as far as I can. That's the focal point, is my elbow. And I want to get my elbow back as far as I can. And that's going to give me maximal contraction on my lat. Now, if I'm doing an overhand grip, again, same thing. I want to keep my elbow up nice and high, and I want to drive my arm back and contract. A little trick to get yourself even higher if you want to do traps and rear delts more, you can sit, get yourself a little lower. Keep your elbows up high and pull up high and wide. That's going to hit much more trap and rear delt. That brings out a lot of upper back detail that you see people missing when they're on stage. So connecting to your back is obviously the most important thing mentally. You want to have good neuromuscular efficiency. You want to connect to your back and be able to contract it. Think of your elbows as your focal points. As you're driving back, you want to get them as far behind you as possible. So now we're going to get into a pull down again, how to correctly operate a pull down, the different cues you can use to target the lats. This is going to be more for lat width. You're not going to be rowing back where you're going to be contracting your back in this direction. It's going to be an overhead straight pull down. So you want to target, again, the outer sweep of the lat by driving the elbow to the hip. Again, every cue when you train back is elbows. So right now I want to have a nice relaxed grip, chest up nice and high, and I want to drive my elbows down to my hips. I don't want to think about my forearms. I don't want to think about my biceps. All I want to do is drive my elbows down to my hips. And in doing so, you're getting your lats as short as possible in the vertical position. Keeping your chest up nice and high, a slight arch to the back. You have to think of chest and back as antagonistic muscle groups. So the wider you get your chest open, the more contracted you can get your back. It's just like a bicep and a tricep. The further you stretch your tricep, the more contracted you can get your bicep. So the further we open up the chest, the further we can contract the back. So as far as hand positioning goes, I like to start with my hands up first, and I drive my elbows down. The lowest my elbows can get with this hand positioning is where I put my hands, if that makes any sense. So Doing this wide, you're not gonna get your elbows any lower. Or going in narrow, you're gonna shorten your range of motion. So I try to find where my hands fit comfortably, that ergonomic position where my elbows are as low to the ground as they can get, and that's the positioning I put my hands.
Basically, you try to find the hand width that allows your elbows
to get as low, right, to get the biggest range of motion. So whatever hand width is gonna give me the biggest range of motion is where I place them. Now, there's the old school Dorian mentality. The closer you go, the stronger you get inside grip. And that is true, you can handle more weight, but it does shorten the range of motion as far as getting your elbows down as low as possible. Another great exercise to use to stimulate lat thickness is a straight arm pull down. A lot of people have very detailed backs, but not a lot of lat width. This and the standard Nautilus pullover are the only isolated lat movements you could really do, because it's a single joint and you're driving your palms down, or again, you could use the elbows as a cue, driving your elbows back as far as possible and contracting the lats. Chest up high, drive down and squeeze. I like a straight bar because I get my hands wider. I feel with a rope, my hands are a little narrow, and if I want to pull them apart, I start to involve a little tricep. This kind of locks my hands into a standard position, and I could just focus on, again, see how loose my grip is? I just basically have my palms on the bar. I'm not even really grabbing it, and I'm driving my elbows back and squeezing. That's going to target the lats from here down. So you get that nice meaty thickness. For any front lat spread, front double bicep, when the lat really pops out, that's what you're going to see. And this exercise right here is probably one of the best at developing it. So another great back exercise, something that is sometimes misunderstood and underutilized, is a partial rack pull. A lot of times people do these too low and you involve a lot of hamstring and glute, which isn't bad if you're trying to build the posterior chain. But if you want to isolate back, I recommend having the bar at roughly knee height, taking an overhand grip again like this, nice and loose, chest up high. And the important part of this movement is scapular retraction at the top. Back down. Doing these slow and controlled, you're gonna build your spinal erectors. You're gonna get some lat engagement, some trap engagement, but that whole posterior chain from the glutes up is gonna be contracted when you bring your scapulas back, slight arch to the spine, and contract. I'll be honest, and I'm sure a lot of people won't agree with me with this, but I don't recommend full deadlifts off the ground for a back day. To me, that's a mass builder for a body in general. You're gonna get a lot of glute, a lot of hamstring. If it's something you want to do once every 2 weeks, once a month in your back routine, just to pump out some power and really get explosive, it's not a bad idea. But for developing, let's say, definition and detail for a competition, I recommend partial deadlifts or partial rack pulls over pulling off the ground. If you're a young kid, you're trying to put on size, obviously you know the big three: squat, deadlift, bench press. Those are staples in pretty much every bodybuilder or every powerlifter, every strength training routine. But when you're refining your physique, you have to take those basic movements and add a little to them to make them suitable for what your goals are. And if you're a competitor, this is, in my opinion, much better movement for back development than pulling off the ground. So now that we've gone over some elbow positions, some hand positions, some tricks to connect to your back, how to target different areas of the back, I'm gonna show you my favorite standalone exercise for overall back development and back thickness is an overhand barbell row. So I like to grip the bar right outside shoulder width. Again, just like we talked about with a pull down, I see where my hands can get the furthest back. Here, I can't get them back too far. Here, they're a little wide. This seems to be the sweet spot where I can get my elbows as far as I can back and contract without having any kind of other muscles come into play. So I take a grip right about there. Again, thumbs over the bar. Step off. I let the bar hang to about my knees, chest up, back straight, and pull to my belly button. Contracting the back the whole time. You see people do this. Or, you don't want to do any of that. You want to stay low the whole time. Your torso should have minimal movement. Your glutes and hamstrings are gonna be your stabilizers, and all you're gonna do is think about driving your elbows back. Now, there are a lot bigger guys than me that do this with a lot worse form, so I'm not gonna say it doesn't work, but to me, the least amount of movement in the torso, the better. All right, so now that we've showed you the barbell row, which again, is my standard for back thickness and development, a secondary movement to that, if you have any lower back issues or you have a hard time handling the barbell, we can start with a seated machine row. We're gonna take the same kind of grip that we would on the barbell, thumbs over the top, chest up high, and we're gonna pull straight back. The benefit with doing this on a machine is you have different degrees of height you can pull from. You can pull elbows up nice and high, you could pull them down low, and again, like we talked about before, the lower your elbows and the tighter they are to your body, the more lat development you're gonna get. The higher they come up, the more upper back and trap development you're gonna get. This machine has the benefits of 2 handles, so if we really wanted to target upper back and lower lat, we could do it with the same machine, just taking a different grip. Now this I feel so much more on my lats. Think about this, elbows down, thumbs up for lower lat, elbows up, thumbs in for upper back and traps. So as we've been talking now about elbow position and targeting traps and upper back versus lower lats, some people ask, should I train traps with back or should I train them with shoulders? And the answer is you can pretty much do what you want as long as you space them out far enough in between. I like to train back with traps because all my rowing movements that are developing my upper back are also hitting my traps. So when I start to pull with shrugs in a vertical position, I feel like that's just the finisher to get a little trap height. But all the rowing I've been doing has been giving me my middle and upper trap width and thickness. So now that we've gone over pretty much all the do's and don'ts for back training, how to target specific areas on the back, my favorite exercise for thickness and for width, we can show you some of the angled machines that put those finishing touches on the back. We talked about how to recruit traps into a back routine. This low row from Hammer Strength is probably one of the best machines for that. You take a nice seated low row, chest up high, slight arch in the back, pull up and contract. And this is pretty much all upper back, but predominantly traps. So you can get a lot of trap thickness by rowing in this movement.
And this will be the lower part of the trap, right?
Well, this is actually gonna hit the meat part of the trap right up here. So those big egg-looking traps that you see everybody with, this is gonna give you that kind of look. Now, inversely, pulling this way on a very, very high row. Is there any weight on this thing? Hold on. All right, just for demonstration purposes again. Now this is the inverse of that. Chest up nice and high. Again, you're gonna lean back. You're gonna keep your elbows down, thumbs up, and squeeze. So now we're targeting the lower lat. Training back is all about angles. You start with the vertical pull down, and you could pretty much pull at every degree of movement from here down to a low row. So me using a thumbless grip, I usually use Versa grips when I train really heavy, but it takes my forearm and a lot of my bicep out of it. I pretend my hands are hooks, the same as a Versa grip would be. I try to totally mentally disconnect from this portion of my arm and just drive my elbows down. So when I train a client and I want them to connect to their back, I have them use no weight and let their hands hang loose and drive their elbows back, drive their elbows back, drive their elbows back, drive their elbows back. And as they're driving their elbows back, they're contracting that back. The more they can do that mentally with no weight, and we start to add weight, the better they'll be able to do it when the weight gets pretty heavy. So those are my tricks and tips for training back. I hope you guys found that useful. If there's any other body parts you want to see or anything you want me to discuss, you feel free to message me at any time. I'll make sure Sway gets out here and we film that for you guys. But this is Coach Dave with Condemned Labz signing out for this one, and I'll see you on the next video.